Hi, Candy from Quilt Vine, and I'm here for the final round of Rising, our first Around the Block of the month. Thank you for sticking this out with me. Thank you for participating. This final round, it's a lot of piecing and a lot of blocks, but it's very, very simple. They're just Courthouse steps. I think that's what they're called, Courthouse steps blocks, which is a variation of a log cabin. And I'm just going to show you how I did that, and we'll get them to put together and we'll be done. Here we go. Okay, round 6 of Rising is a very simple round. They're just a courthouse steps, or it's a form of a log cabin. But I do want to show you the way that I prefer to cut it out. I like using the Shape Cut Plus that I have here, and I'm just going to demonstrate on fabric number 5, or I guess in the cave one it's a different number, but it's the fabric where I'm cutting the 2.5-inch squares. So I've got my strip of fabric here, my width of fabric, and I fold it in half, and I make sure my edges are lined up. Now if they aren't lined up, that's fine, because we can trim them with this. Okay, I need 2 strips at 2.5 by the width of fabric. So if I don't have it nice and straight along there, after I've got it folded in half, along the fold, I place the bottom line here of my strip cut plus. And I want the 0 past the side, because then I can trim it up real nice and straight if your edge isn't straight there. So I just need 2 2.5-inch strips. So I cut it to 0, and cut it to 2.5, and cut it to 5. And I need 2.5-inch squares. So once again, I lay them out, and I'm going to lay them side by side. You can do a lot more strips than 2, but this is all I have for this fabric. And I've got my my selvages are down here. So I've got my 0, I come up past the selvages. And this 0 line I lay across the bottom. And I'm just going to cut every 2.5 inches. So there, I've got the 0, 2.5, 5, 7.5, 10, 12.5, 15, 17.5, and I've got, there's 2 on each one, so I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 20. Okay, so I've got extra, I've got more than enough. And that's how I cut things out using the Shape Cut Plus. And I can also use that for the other fabrics in this round, but I'm not going to show you all of them. Just do it all the same way. Okay, to begin the sewing, I'm going to start with block number 1. For block number 1, we need 2.5-inch center squares of our print and 2.5-inch squares of background fabric, and background fabric that is 2.5 by 6.5. And we're going to do some chain piecing. We're making a lot of blocks here. I forget how many we're making. 24. We're making 24 blocks. I think I'm just going to demo with 3. I'm going to chain piece 3 of them together and show you how I would do it. So I've got my print and my 2.5-inch square, line them up, and begin sewing. And you can make these, like right now I'm just going to show you 3. You can do all 24 at a time. You can do like 6 at a time, whatever works for you. When I get going, I like to just keep going. And if I weren't demonstrating just 3 blocks for you, I would probably do all 24 at the same time. I also recommend, if you haven't made a block before, that you do 1 block first, so you could do 1 block, and then chain piece the remaining 23, once you know that you're doing the block right. So there, I've chain pieced those together. And I'm going to cut them apart. Then I'm going to take them and press them. Normally I would say press to the darker fabric, but I always like to, when I'm doing something like this, I like to press to the outside. So in this case, my outside is my background fabric. So the way I like to press, I like the chain press. I set the seam, press it over, set the seam, press it over. I keep them all laying there and I just continue to press on top of one another. Okay, now, same thing, I take my background fabric and sew it to the opposite side of my print. Do I have it all on the screen? Let me move that up a little bit. There we go. Again, I'm going to press to the background. And now I'm going to sew them onto the longer background pieces. What I would do here is I would put the long background piece on the bottom and put the pieced part on top, because that way I can make sure that where I've pressed it, you know, that they're going in the direction that I want them to go. And the best way to do that is by if they're on top. Okay, I'm only going to chain piece 2 this time because I don't want to waste your time here with you just watching me sew. Like I said, this round is a very simple round. Again, I'll press them toward the background fabric. And we're almost done. We've just got one more piece to sew into the end. Right, we'll just do the one this time. You got the idea of chain piecing. And there I've got my first block of the block number 1. And now I would continue doing that until I would make all 24 blocks. Okay, after you have all of block number 1 made, now I'm going to show you how we do block number 2. Block number 2 is really the same thing, it's just a few more pieces. We're starting with a 2.5 inch square of our background fabric, and then we need a 2.5 by 1.5 of our print. Let's just try to do this quick. We won't do the leaders and enders. We won't chain piece a bunch together, we'll just do one. So now we put this on the opposite side. See what happens when you don't use your leader and ender? My thread came out. So much for trying to show you fast. See? Just let you see what happens. Doesn't always go the way that you plan it. And sometimes maybe it's beneficial to not edit out all the goofs. got those two on. Now we need the longer prints to put on the opposite sides. Got the other print to put on the opposite side of that. So we've got that round done. Now we go to the background fabrics. Now we need the ones that are 1.5 by 4.5, I think they are. And so what I want to do when I add this one, I want to make sure I add it on to the side that already has a short one. So I'm going to add it here. I don't want to add it to the long one that's the same length. I want to add it to this side. You can see that there. See the seams here? Now I add one on the opposite of that. Okay, and I just have 2 more pieces I need to add, and they go here. Got one more piece to add. So this is our last round. And this ends up being a pretty good size quilt. But if you want to make it for like a king size bed, I would recommend just adding more of the background fabric. I don't know that I would add more print around the outside. I think it would look better just to add background fabric if you want to make it bigger. Okay, this block is done. I know mine's very subtle, but for this round, these are my 2 blocks. And then as you refer to the pattern, once you get all your blocks done, it's just every other one is block number 1, every other one is block number 2. You piece them and then you add them on to what you've done in the previous rounds. And I can't wait to see your finished quilts. This has been so much fun. Just really want to thank you for joining me for our first block of the month. I had a lot of fun designing it. I had a lot of fun doing it with you. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, and I can't wait to see your completed quilt tops. Thank you.